Neil is real. And Neil Joseph is brand new, running in an electoral district called Sangre Grande South. And there was a time when the PNM held on to Sangre Grande South tight with a lady called Miss Trim. All you know about Miss Trim in Sangre Grande? A PNM stalwart and a councillor. And once Miss Trim gone, we can't seem to get that area in grip. Neil is a student of School of Business and Computer Studies, Mechanical Engineering. He is a brilliant young man working WASA, well-spoken on the platform, and he could make us number 5 in Sangre Grande. I met another young man, Nigel Safe, in the newly marked out Manzanilla Fishing Pond District. His father was so much a PNM and his grandfather was so much a PNM. In fact, they say at the funeral of the Safe family, any Safe dead, it have Balize inside and outside the casket. So Safe, Nigel Safe, he's a bishop, he's a preacher. And last night again, I heard him on the platform. I was there in support of him and Ravi Lakana, another candidate, outstanding speaker, somebody who could speak at length about the area that he's running in, Manzanilla Fishing Pond, and he could be number 6 for us in Sangre Grande. And we also have Rishi Lakan, former UNC councillor. Well, we welcome them. We find that they do better with us. And you know, when a UNC councillor comes over to the PNM, we know the voters can't say anything wrong with them. Because when they were there, they were voting them there. So they can't say anything wrong with them, except that they knew and improved under the PNM. And we have two of them in the Sangre Grande race, Ravi Lakan and Rajkumar Bagalu. And the other night I was speaking on the platform in Guayco with Bagalu. Well, since Bagalu must be in his 60s. Since Bagalu come in the PNM, he can't stop bouncing. The man by the platform, bouncing. And he fell short in 2016 by 200. And I told them in Sangre Grande, it must be easy to find those votes in that district, Komoto Tamana, to bring Bagalu home. And we don't want 5, we want all 8, because we have put together good candidates, a great slate in Sangre Grande, a great one in Siparia, and all you have to do is work to bring out our votes to bring it home. And I know that land is a big issue in Siparia and all over this Siparia Regional Corporation in all the electoral districts. So I came here tonight also to talk about land. And you know, Sunday night Maurice had me in Sandpit. All you know Sandpit? Sandpit in what was in an area that used originally named the Tick Agricultural Society Project. And the plight of those residents is the same as people around the country. You know, in a typical, I was saying last night, we have opponents who like to have their meeting where highway passing, where the highway passing. In fact, we had a meeting in Boys Town, Sangre Grande, which is not necessarily highway. And they had a meeting in the heart of Sangre Grande. And up in Boys Town, the PNM had quite a few hundred people. And in the heart of Sangre Grande, with all the bright lights, KFC Royal Castle, I think they managed 50 people, including the PNM people who didn't get transport to the PNM meeting, so they decided to stay in Grande and listen. And I was saying to them, as a party in our 63 years, we go where we have to go, We go everywhere. We have meetings in house, in shop, in yard, wherever. We may even have had a meeting in a funeral home already. I don't know, but I'm sure. But we go wherever we had to go. And in Sandpit, they've been dealing with this issue of land tenure. And the people came out, very disciplined, very nice crowd. And they came with one issue and one issue in mind, this issue of tenure. And it is something that has affected people around the country. And I've spoken about it a lot. It's been a significant problem. There was a time in our history where our records relating to land were well ordered and well organized. But as the country developed, as we moved from those large private estates and those became state land, and as some private owners abandoned their lands and people started to occupy, we developed a problem in this country in relation to agriculture. People who had leases, for example, in Wallerfield and Carlsonfield, in Tick, and in other parts of the country, their leases expired and they were not renewed. On average, I deal with people who have been waiting with a lease that has been expired for 25, 30 years. That is more than a generation, and they have been waiting, and part of the issue with agriculture is these farming families, where the young people in the family don't feel motivated because they've seen their parents frustrated, going with an envelope of documents, a white plastic bag with documents, a garbage bag with documents, every week, every 2 weeks, going to some government office, knocking from pillar to post, as we say, looking for this lease to be renewed. And I have said, in all other forms of business enterprise in the country, people have all the things that they need to make their investments. But in agriculture, our farmers and their families have suffered on account of not having renewed leases. And we set in our manifesto, there are about 16 commitments we made in the PNM manifesto in relation to agriculture. Half of them deals with land tenure and reforming the system of land administration. And in that meeting in Tick Village, there were a couple people saying, but Minister, 2 years ago, we heard you in Mondiablo, and you promised that you were going to deal with Tick Village. You promised us, and after that, we never see you again. And I was scratching my head thinking, but maybe I really disappointed these people and make them a promise and never come back and never deal with a file. And all on a sudden, a lady say, well, anyway, Minister, all I come to tonight is to tell you, I'm waiting a whole year to tell you thanks for my lease renewal. And she dipped in her pocket, and she pulled out the envelope. And when she bust open the envelope, I realized it's a letter signed by me. And all the files come back flowing through my head. And I realized that in that area, we had already granted approvals to the renewal of substantial numbers of leases for those who had provided all the documentation to the ministry. And a lot of people there were happy, even those who have not gotten their renewals, because they believe that the system is working, that the focus we have placed on the renewal of leases which have expired in relation to agriculture is actually working. And then there are those, even in your community, who have been on lands without approval. In fact, many of the most productive farmers in this country are on lands, particularly state lands, for which they have no approval.
Forward, this how we moving, so never stop believing. We getting it done. A new country we building, this country first we choosing, and every day we proving. We getting it done. They only mama guying, we don't know they was thieving. They cannot tell me nothing. Red is how we rolling, it's PNM we voting. We doing it right.
Political parties join out on today.
We getting it done. Good for country, good for party. Team Rowley, we're building legacy. So when you're voting, know that you're building a strong foundation for this great nation. This is a nation of many races, different faces in many spaces. So when you're voting, know that you're building a strong foundation for this great nation.
Siparia, Honorable Prime Minister and political leader, Dr. Keith Rowley. That is how you welcome him. Thank you very much and welcome, Prime Minister. As I was saying, many of the very productive farmers in this country, wherever they are farming, in Orange Grove, for example, often described as some of the best lands in the country, not one lease has ever been given out in Orange Grove. And as we go through the country, a lot of productive farmers have been on land for which they have no title, no lease, no tenure, no tenancy agreement. We've also been working on that aspect of it, to bring them in A lot of times the problem is that they do not have the documentation, they have not made a claim, they have not filed something, they have not made a request. Or in our case, a lot of times it's because the documents are old, the files are old, the matter has been sitting there for long, and we have to go and retrieve the files to bring them up to date. So that is in relation to agricultural land. And we are confident in the PNM, we are confident in the government that the work we have done for the last 4 years, particularly the last 2 years, will ensure that we'll continuously be renewing and granting agricultural leases so our farmers, our farming families, like those in Tick in Siparia, in Sandpit Road, will get their leases and feel comfortable and be able to do their farming and support their families going into the future. But we've also done a lot of work in relation to residential land. When we came into government, not too long after we came in, a lot of people don't realize that there is a lot of state land in this country that is leased for residential purposes. From Toko, in fact, right down through the East-West Corridor into Port of Spain, areas like St. Clair, on the East-West Corridor, areas like St. Augustine, Aruca, Curep, down through Southwest Trinidad, all down to Tiche and some of the older developments in Southwest Trinidad. And what we found as a government, in particular the Minister of Finance, made the observation that under the current system, when you have a parcel of state land for residential purposes and the 30-year lease you've been given expires, the whole process resets. And you are now living on this parcel of land. You may have built a house or a substantial structure. You're living there with your family. But under the rules as they existed at the time, we now have to do a new valuation of that land. And you're going to be called upon to pay all over again. So you may have paid rent for 30 years, and now it is reset and you have to pay all over again. I'll give you an example. In places like St. James, where we have people who in their 30s rented a parcel of state land for residential purposes, built a house and established a family. When they turn 30 years after, they're now in their 60s. The lease expires. We will do a valuation. The valuation in St. James may say that the parcel of land is now $450,000. And that 65-year-old will be asked to pay the state $450,000 for a 30-year lease of that land. And if they're not able to do that, they can pay a 3.5% annual rent over 30 years, which works out to close to $14,000 a year. And it is the Minister of Finance who pointed out to me that that was something wrong. We should not continue that policy because we wanted to encourage people to own their house. We wanted to encourage people to invest in the improvement of their houses. We wanted to encourage people, given the housing situation and the demand for housing, to maybe invest to expand their houses so they might be able to accommodate their children and their children's family. And eventually, the Cabinet approved a policy which says if you are the tenant, residential tenant of state land, and your lease comes up for renewal, you are entitled to that lease at 30% the market value. It means in relation to that property in St. James that is $450,000, it is a reduction of $300,000 in what you are required to pay. There's also a reduction in the rental. So if instead of paying the $150,000 for the 30-year lease, you wish to rent on an annual basis, instead of the $14,000, the rent will be $4,500 a year or $400 a month. And that makes it incredibly more affordable for people of this country. And that is an important, very important decision that impacts thousands and thousands of families in this country who live and have lived a long time on residential state land. But we also know that there are people who will be speculators, people who do not live on the land, and they buy a parcel of land from somebody who is in occupation of it, and they then come to us and say, we want to renew the lease. Well, the Cabinet also approved as part of that policy, if the tenant, if the original tenant is not the person renewing the lease. If the lease has been sold or transferred to somebody else, that somebody else must pay the full price. And that way, we protect the citizens of this country while giving a benefit for those who need it. We also, as a government, recognize that in order to assist particularly young people, young families in the country, we needed to make more land available. There were young people in this country, there are young people in this country, and older people who don't necessarily need access to an HTC house. They have the resources, they have access to financing in order to build their own house, and all they require is a parcel of land to do so. And through successive ministers of housing, ending with my colleague, Minister Dillon, the government and the cabinet approved a program called the Aided Self-Help Housing Program, which again recognizes that affordability is the key to stabilizing families, particularly young families. And in the Aided Self-Help Program, those lots which were developed at the same time the government was developing lots for the Caroni VSEP workers, those lots are being offered to persons who qualify at 30% the market value. So again, a young person, an older person, a single person looking to establish themselves and having access to their own savings or capital, or somebody who could approach TTMF for financing, is able to save $300,000 to $400,000 on a parcel of land on account of the Aided Self-Help Housing Program. And you know, a lot of people in this country, including our supporters, including some of you who are here tonight, we'll always hear them saying, well, I didn't know that. I don't know about that. The government ain't doing nothing for me. The PNM has been in the business of getting it done since 1963. And I believe that the Aided Self-Help Housing Program currently of offer is one of the best representations of the People's National Movement getting the job done. And let me just make something abundantly clear tonight. That program didn't just drop out of the sky. I was involved in Caroni 1975 Limited. Dr. Rowley was involved as a minister prior to that and as a cabinet member during the approval of the VSEP for Caroni 1975 Limited. And when the decision was taken to offer the residential plots to the Caroni workers, a decision was also taken to develop more than the required amount. And we believe that for the Caroni VSEP worker, we needed about 7,000 lots. The figure ended up being 8,885, but the development included was over 12,000 lots, and the additional 4,000 lots is what has been placed in the Aided Self-Help Housing Program. So this was thought about since 2002, when the VSEP was being designed. It was worked out all along when the developments were being executed. And when we came into government, since late 2016, this has been an offer for any citizen of the country, wherever they live, at 30% the market value. Last week in Chaguanas, I talked about the Caroni workers. And again, it is a PNM government that made a commitment in 2003 in the VSEP to the former Caroni workers, a commitment of residential lots and agricultural plots. And we went out of government, and we came back in government in 2015, this time with me having the responsibility for land. And we met a significant amount of what remained to be done in 2010, still left to be done in 2015. And we have kept our promise to the Caroni 1975 Limited workers. We have been getting it done in relation to those workers. And last week in Chaguanas, I set out how we've reached and how far we've gone to meeting those commitments to those workers. And we've done it without regard to politics, without regard to where in the country you are located in, without regard to your race, without regard to your religion. It does not matter. The PNM and government gets in trouble sometimes with our own supporters for getting the job done, not for ourselves, but for all of us in this country. I want to end on a topic that everybody knows about, but people don't like to talk about. And I'm not talking about marijuana. I'm talking about this issue of squatting. We have a problem. And that problem has largely developed because state lands and forest reserves, which were supposed to be under the watch of people on the payroll of the government, went without many people paying attention. And across the country on state lands and in forest reserves, even in the forest reserves in your community, all through Southwest, on PSAL land, on Petrochin land, on all the lands of the former oil companies, we've had this issue of squatting. But we have to confront it. And there's no more significant area in Trinidad than northeast Trinidad. Over a period of time, the pristine forest reserve that was once along the Valencia stretch, it has been overtaken by squatters. And we have people who are supposed to be looking after that. Forest officers, land officers, corporation employees, all sorts of people on the payroll, going up and down that place and doing absolutely nothing. So in 2019, what we've found ourselves with in northeast Trinidad is this. We have 2,660 acres of forest reserve called the Valencia Long Stretch. On those 2,660 acres, we have 5,850 structures, of which 3,650 are residential structures. So we're talking about a community far bigger than any of the communities in Southwest Trinidad, developing there over a period of time, in some cases over decades. Count the families. If you have 2 children in each of those structures, you're talking about thousands and thousands of little children growing up in communities where their families cannot advance simply because they do not have land tenure. Because I don't have to convince you in Southwest Trinidad and in Siparia in particular. If you do not have tenure for your land, if a family in particular, a young family with young children, do not have a title to hold on to, they will never see progress and advancement. They'll remain in the same place at the same time. And it is in 2005 that the PNM government decided once and for all to deal with the issues in northeast Trinidad. And the cabinet made some decisions to advance that work. And between 2005 and 2015, there were always problems in relation to advancing the issues. In particular, we could not move because it was forest reserve. And you cannot give anybody a lease for forest reserve. Same way you cannot give somebody a lease for the riverbank or the seashore. And the ultimate decision was to take those lands in northeast, 2,660 acres, take it out of the forest reserve and move ahead with a program funded by the IDB to give out leases in those areas and resolve the issues for those families who have lived there for so long. And it is not an easy decision to make. It is not an easy decision to make because they have gotten there on account of lawlessness. But not only their lawlessness, but the lawlessness of those on the payroll paid to prevent that. So while we deal with that, we also have to deal with the issue of containment across the country. And we have not lost that forest reserve. In a separate exercise, through the FAO, we've been able to conduct an exercise across the country to identify those areas that are so built up and developed and encroach on that they must no longer be classified as forest reserve. And at the same time, we've identified those areas in the country where we've been investing in replanting and planting and developing forested lands. And we believe that we have enough acreage that could be turned into forest reserves to balance those that we are removing from forest reserve. And the net effect is that this country will have more land under forest reserves than less land under forest reserve. But it's something we must do. And finally, in relation to squatters, it is not just forest reserve. I was in Jonestown, Arima a few weeks ago, following a cabinet decision 291 families living almost in the heart of Arima for 60 years on land that somebody told them go ahead and build on. And for 60 years, 291 families living there with no title, with no tenure, and with no understanding of where the future will take them. And the cabinet took a decision to regularize those persons. In my home community, you know I move. You know I move. Yes, Chaguanas East. Chaguanas East, but Rio Claro is my home community. I'm born there. Guayari Road, we used to have a brick factory there. 189 acres. People live on it. Cabinet took a decision to regularize those persons once and for all. And across the country, your two MPs here, well, Dylan works hard and Nicole works harder. Every community in their area where they have squatters, where they have people in need of regularization, they are bringing it to my attention, bringing it to the attention of the ministry so that we could finally deal with those issues. There are many issues in relation to land tenure. There are many issues in relation to agriculture. But I'll tell you this, whether it is residential land or agricultural land, whether it is squatters, whether it is the colony workers, whether it is the young families who require lands to establish their structure, the first step we must make is to get their information from them, work on the issue of tenure, and give all of them their leases. And if we do that, they on their own motivation and their own momentum, using in many cases they have or they have access to, they will advance their lives. And our theme in this local government campaign is getting the job done. And if after what I've said tonight you do not believe that the PNM is getting the job done, well, something is wrong with you in Siparia. And if anything was wrong with you in Siparia, I leave you where we started. We campaigned in 2016, right outside KFC, and you promised us you will bring this corporation home. You fell short. Do not make that mistake this time. Matthew Alexander needs more votes to be strengthened, and Anand Maraj and Rosilak deserves to be in the corporation. And every one of our 9 candidates stand out head and shoulders above anybody else who is on offer. We have 39 outstanding candidates in this election, and we want to try to get everyone in. All will not get in, but we want enough to get in Siparia so we could take this away from the opposition once and for all. Thank you very much.
We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. 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 We're ready. We're ready. Yeah, we're ready.
You heard it, Siparia. You have some unfinished business from 2016, but the PNM is getting it done in 2019. You heard it from the incoming MP for Chaguanas East. Let us give it up for Senator Clarence Chamara. Let me acknowledge joining us on the stage, Senator the Honorable Robert LaHunt, our Minister of Public Utilities. And in the audience, we also have the Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Public Utilities, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Laventille East Mova. Give it up for Adrian Leons. Okay, Siparia, it's time to meet your candidates. You have already been introduced to your representative for Siparia East San Francisco South School Principal, Ms. Donnell Halls Alexander. Representing the electoral district of Avakeet, San Francisco North, we have a community activist and business owner, Ms. Nikita Richards. Nikita, come on stage. Our next councillor for the electoral district of Palo Seco, a former teacher and attorney at law with 10 years experience. I give you Mrs. Dana O'Neill Gervais. The man to bring home the Otahiti-Rosilak electoral district, a business owner with an associate degree in marketing and public relations, Sir Anand Ramsey Memaraj.
In the fires of hope and prayer.
Returning for Brighton Destiny, we have Sitting Councillor, recently retired, a community activist with qualifications in event management, Mr. Gerald Bump Deviset. The man to bring Cedras home to the PNM, president of the Cedras Charity Foundation. He works in the healthcare system as a nutrition and dietetics aide. Let's bring on stage Mr. Rashid Mohammed. Returning for Erin, Sitting Councillor, holder for Diploma in Health and Safety, currently pursuing a technical operational diploma in local government. I give you Mrs. Arlene Ramdale. With a bachelor's degree in social services and a postgraduate diploma in mediation, a former teacher, now financial advisor, I give you your candidate for Orup for Mondesi, Mr. Alan Pierre. The favorite son of Faizabad, returning for Siparia West Faizabad, a teacher by profession, the man who is far from finished, your second councillor, Mr. Maurice Alexander. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for your candidates who will bring home the Siparia Regional Corporation. Our next speaker is a man who hails from the Southwest. He is a gentleman, a soldier, and a scholar. He once served this nation as the Chief of Defense Staff, and now he serves on the battleground that has become the nation's parliament. Former Minister of National Security, now he provides citizens with the security of owning their own home. Join me in welcoming our Minister of Housing and Urban Development, the Member of Parliament for Point Fortin, the Honorable Major General Retired Edmund Ernest Dillon.
New country we building, this country first we choosing, and every day we proving. We getting it done. They only mama guying, we don't know they was thieving. They cannot tell we nothing. Red is how we rolling. It's PNM we vote.
Thank you very much for those warm words of introduction, my fellow MP and my neighboring MP, Nicola Lever. Political leader and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Senator, the Honorable Robert LaHunt, Minister of Public Utilities. Senator, the Honorable Clarence Rambert, Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. Senator Dennis Moses, Minister of CARICOM and Foreign Affairs. Also want to recognize Mrs. Donald Halls Alexander, candidate for the electoral district of Siparia East, San Francisco South. Candidates all from Siparia Regional Corporation, Penal Debe Corporation, and of course, Point Fortin Borough. PNM people, a pleasant good evening to you all. I know it's traditional that you use this phrase at the end of your presentation, but I believe this phrase is such a foundational phrase, such a great phrase. It's so good that I think we should always do it twice. So I want to do it from the start, and I will repeat it at the end. And I say to you all, great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. And we will prevail. And if we go back to the charter, the People's Charter, and it said us, nor are we an ordinary party in the accepted narrow sense of the word. We are a rally. We are a convention for all and by all, cutting across all race, color, and creed. That is the party that we know as the People's National Movement, ladies and gentlemen. A party for all, a party by all, and a party that will conquer all, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes it's good to go back, to use the review mirror a little bit as a fleeting glance to the past. Because you see, it is this party that has moved us from colonialism to independence in 1962. from colonialism, from independence to republicanism in 1976. It is this PNM party that saw the restructuring of education in Trinidad and Tobago. It is this PNM party that saw the restructuring of the oil sector when we took over from Shell in Trintoc in 1974, in Trintopec in 1985, Petrotrin in 1993, and we saw the merger between Trintopec and Petrotrin. Ladies and gentlemen, we saw the monetization of gas in 1999 by Atlantic LNG. All these things that we saw was based on a PNM government, ladies and gentlemen. Because the PNM government takes decisions not for selfish reasons, but for the benefit of all, ladies and gentlemen. Today, as a military man, I want to say to you all that we are in a state of war. We are in a state of war, not a war with guns and bullets, not a war with tanks and airplanes and ships, but we're in a war, a state of war, to win the minds of the electorate come the 2nd of December. And in war, we have certain kinds of principles. We must have the selection and maintenance of the aim. And the aim of each and every one of us, including the candidates, must be to win that election. And that's just one of the battles, ladies and gentlemen. That's a battle that we must win on the 2nd of December. Because the grand battle, the great battle, comes in 2020. But success breeds success. Success breeds success. And therefore I urge you, we must be, we will be, and we must be successful come the 2nd of December. And how can we do that? We're doing that because we have a strong and powerful leader, ladies and gentlemen. We have a strong and powerful leader in the person of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Sometimes I feel he's not telling us his true age. Because our Prime Minister was at Palo Seco last night. He was in Diego Martin on Saturday night. Ladies and gentlemen, look at the dedication to duty. Look at the perseverance to duty. Look at the commitment to duty. Tonight, he's back here in Siparia, ladies and gentlemen. Please let us give him that wonderful applause. Because in every war that you fight, and if you go back to history, there's always a well-known general that leads the battle with a signature at the end of the day. And today, I don't have the power. It's never vested in me. But anytime there's a war to the British and American system, there's one rank that comes forward. It only happens when there's a war. A field marshal is only declared when there's war. That's the only time they make those ranks. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at a war. And if the power is vested in me, tonight, I will declare our Prime Minister a field marshal. He continues to articulate change because he sees and he thinks strategically. And I must commend him, not only strategically as he thinks, but he comes down to the boondocks, as we say. He comes down to the ground. While he thinks strategically, he has his ears on the ground and he places himself on the ground. That's why he's here tonight. That's why he goes to every single meeting. In my history, I can't remember a Prime Minister going. He was in Sandy Grande, he was in Siparia, he was in Palo Seco, he was in Diego Martin. He doesn't have to. But because of the commitment of the individual, because of the leadership of the individual, he leads that way. By his presence, he influences us to fight that battle. And so I urge the candidates, take a page from his book. You are in war. War means you never take your enemy for granted. Do not feel that there's a definite silence with the UNC and that nothing is happening. Do not take it for granted the incumbents in Point Fortin. Do not take it for granted the incumbents in Siparia Regional Corporation. Do not take it for granted the incumbents in Penal Debe. I say to you, war is about knowing that the people on the other side, they are your enemies. And therefore you must go at them aggressively. But in this battle, your battle starts, your battle really is a test on election day, when you must go out in your numbers. Go out there and pull out the voters, PNM and otherwise. That's where it counts. It's not about counting bullets, it's about counting votes. And as our Prime Minister continues to say to us, every single vote counts. It's about numbers. Do not take it for granted that the old lady or the young boy who says, I'm not voting, don't leave them alone. Take them with you, if it's by the hand, by the vehicle, whatever it is. Every single vote counts, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what the war is about. I leave it to you to be aggressive outside there. Bring in the numbers, and therefore we'll sort victory when the time comes. But today I want to share a little bit of what my ministry is doing, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. See, we are embedded in Vision 2030 that says to us, putting people first, nurturing our greatest assets. And this is what the PNM government is all about, putting people first. And part of that draws an alignment to Abraham Maslow's conceptualization of the hierarchy of needs. And he says that before man or woman could self-actualize, they must benefit from the physiological needs: food, clothing, and shelter. Food, clothing, and shelter. The ministry that I lead deals with one aspect of that, the whole question of providing shelter for the citizens in part, specifically Trinidad, in some cases in Tobago, and more in Trinidad than in Tobago. And so, since 1965, the People's National Movement have been aligned with providing houses. Those old enough would remember self-help buildings in Point Fortin, in Hubertstown, in La Brea, in Pleasantville, in Mova. And if you look around now, they still have the same shape, the same size, everything was done, but it was self-help. We formed the NHA in 1962, and of course the AGC in 2005. And we continue along those lines, and all those were done by our PNM government because we care, and because we're interested in getting it done, ladies and gentlemen. And so, today I can say that notwithstanding the economic times that we have gone through, the Ministry of Housing Development, Urban Development, particularly the Housing Development Corporation, has been able to allocate a total of 3,600 plus homes between 2015 to now. 3,600 and something plus homes, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting it done. But it wasn't easy. Coming into office in 2015, and I call them the Unpatriotic National Congress. I say the U stands for unpatriotic. And I tell you why. You know, sometimes in Parliament, they jump up and they says, we are patriotic, we are patriotic. And I said to them at one occasion, Margaret Thatcher once said, that anytime a lady has to go around telling people that she's a lady, then she's not. So I said to them, one day, you never hear we in the PNM saying that we are patriotic, you know. But they have to stand up and shout that they're patriotic. Patriotism is by what you do, what you say, how you act, how you behave. And that goes for the People's National Movement. You can see how we act and how we behave. We're always there. We are patriotic. But the Unpatriotic National Congress, when we take over housing in 2015, there were several stall projects. Stall meaning they started in 2010 during the PNM time. And they never touched them during the 5 years. They run them down to the... I can talk about my own constituency of Point Fortin in Lakeview. They never touched a single unit in Lakeview during the 5 years that they were in power. Had cows, goats, vagrants, buildings were vandalized. It happened in several such developments. We do not do that. We treat everyone, as we said in our charter. We go across every color, crease, or race. We treat everyone equally. So we had to complete several stall projects that they never touched. It was in North and Northeast, Saconia Crescent, Malik and Barataria, Viewford, Malabar, Carina Gardens, Fairfield, Lakeview and Point Fortin, Hubertstown, Pierre Road and La Brea. Those are some of the areas that we had to now restart and recondition them. And to date, I think we've completed almost 1,620 stall projects that the UNC had left over the last 5 years, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting it done. And again, based on the economic times, we feel that no government can really treat with a roughly 180,000 applicants in the database. We have to involve the private-public partnership. And so to date, we have 5 such programs going on right now, where we've invited the private sector to partner with us, again, to provide housing for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Mahogany Court in Mount Hope, one such project. Bamboo Creek in Chin, another project. Siparia Old Road in Faizabad, one such project. Riverside A and B in Corinth, San Fernando, Trust Trail, would give us a total of 605 units through this public-private partnership. Because as I said before, The government cannot by itself provide houses for 170,000. We must invite the private sector to join with us. And we also look at ways in which that we can bring in revenue to the system, not only depend on the consolidated fund. So we looked at Victoria Keys. Victoria Keys was created as a luxury type of apartment by the then administration. Placed way beyond the reach of the average person. When we came into the office, we said that this must be redone to people who can afford it. We put it on the open market, but it's still subsidized. And to date, we have been able to sell 121 of these units, bringing in a revenue of $232.5 million back into the coffers of AGC to brew other developments, ladies and gentlemen. Another thing that this government did when we came into office is to lower the salary ceiling bar. Before we came in, it was $45,000. The cap was $45,000. Under the guidance of the Prime Minister, that cap did not allow the low and middle income persons to get what was really supposed to happen. We lowered it to $25,000, so we now captain more of the low and middle income persons in that cap, ladies and gentlemen. A very wise decision. Our housing construction incentive program, we went out again to invite the contractors, the developers to treat us. We put out a program whereby for every unit that they can build for us, up to $550,000, they get a $75,000 on each unit. For every unit that can build up to $750,000, between $550,000 and $750,000, they get $100,000 for each unit. That again, we have seen a number of interests, and such programs are already also on the ground taking place, ladies and gentlemen. I want to congratulate the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance. Again, when we look at the Economic Times, for being innovative and creative. The housing bonds that the Minister of Finance mentioned in the budget last debate. He have used quite skillfully the Government Saving Bonds Act to put in place a Housing Bonds Act. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at what the Minister of Finance was saying to us, he's saying that you can now invest in a housing bond at a 5,000 tranche every month, and things is 1,000 to 5,000. It's a savings, but at the same time, you benefit from a 4.5% interest. Tell me any place that you can get a 4.5 interest anywhere right now, ladies and gentlemen. This is a government that is getting it done, ladies and gentlemen. So get an understanding of the bonds when it comes on stream. And I ask, especially the young people, invest in housing bonds. It could determine and put you in a good place for your future ownership. And then solely for purchase of housing under HDC. So I urge you to get involved in it. Minister of Finance also mentioned a government guaranteed $300,000 loan. And that will come into fruition by the Finance Act of December, later on in next month. A guaranteed low interest $300,000 loan, ladies and gentlemen. Another initiative that was mentioned in the budget was, in fact, appealing to small contractors to come on board. Small contractors that can come on board to build units for the agency under $500,000. That process has already started because we have already started to identify the lands. We are going to be providing the lands. We have already looked at lots that are already developed in terms of infrastructure, road, water, drainage, and so on. We look at that infill lots and some of the agency development that's already there. And so we're going to be giving those small contractors probably about 4, 5 units to start off, or maybe 10, depending on the capacity. And based on how successful they are, they can get more. But it's really for only small contractors, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting it done, ladies and gentlemen. So now I want to move across quickly to the Land Settlement Agency, which is another major agency under my charge. And the Land Settlement Agency is about regularization, security of tenure, based on the Act of 2005. But that Act only allows the LSA to treat with regularization of persons who have applied for certificate of comfort up to the year 2000. That was in fact up to 1998, but it was extended to 2000. What that does is to provide people who have applied for the certificate of comfort, a certificate of comfort in a 3-stage process. A 3-stage process. The certificate of comfort in itself merely gives you a security on the land insofar as you will not be ejected. If you are ejected from the land, then the government will find another place for you. You can't use it as collateral. You can't take it to the bank. You can't pass it on to your children or grandchildren. The next phase of that process is to give you a statutory lease. A statutory lease is for 30 years. 30 years, and you get the land at 25% of the market value. 25% of the market value. You have 30 years with which to pay it off. Let's give you an example. If that land costs $200,000, 25% of $200,000 is $50,000. You have 30 years with which to pay off $50,000. That's roughly about $1,600 a year. That's roughly about $138 a month. About 4 rounds of beers. So that if you can move from the certificate of comfort to statutory lease, you can pay off that land. You don't have to wait for the 30 years. The day you get that statutory lease, you can pay off for that land the very next day. You can pay the next week. Once you have paid off for that land under the statutory lease, you then move to the third phase, which is the deed of lease. The deed of lease, ladies and gentlemen, is for 199 years. Freehold property. Freehold property. This is the first government that have moved persons from the certificate of comfort to statutory lease. And it's not by selection, but it so happened that the first person who received the deed of lease about a week ago was someone from Point Fortin, who actually paid off the statutory lease in the shortest possible time and got the deed of lease in hand for 199 years. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the government that cares, the government that is getting it done. First government to do so. Mr. Ramraj spoke about the government-aided self-help program. And that's about land, providing already developed land. It was done based on an application. There were 5,000 applicants. Out of that, 1,000 was chosen randomly. So far, the Land Settlement Agency has processed 700 of those applicants. Out of the 700, 332 have already signed their leases. This program is one in which you must be over 21 years of age. You must be able to qualify for at least $320,000. You have 2 years with which to build your house. You build your own house. But we provide you with pre-approved plans, country-approved plans. We provide you the infrastructure, the roads, the drains, lights, electricity, and so on. All you have to do is to get your loan and build your homes. You have 2 years in which to do it. In other words, you don't even have to seek bridge and finance. Some people can say you build it month to month for the 2 years and complete your homes. This is what the government has put in place, ladies and gentlemen. This is what the PNM government has put in place to, of course, allow people to own their own homes and build their own homes as they so desire. One of our flagship programs, the Housing and Village Improvement Program, which was based on a visit by the Honorable Prime Minister in 2015. It started off in the American Village in Maruga, where he saw the kind of conditions that people were living in. And he said to the then, who is now the MP from Maruga Tableland, he said, we have to do something about these villagers. And he urged my predecessor, Sir Randall Mitchell, and the MP to work, to implement what his thoughts were. Today, we have the Housing and Village Improvement Program, a program in which we have constructed houses. If you see the before and after shots, you know what I'm talking about. People are living in a place with no floors, no roof, outside bathrooms. They now have a solid concrete structure with toilet and bath, with electricity. Ladies and gentlemen, it started at a price of $100,000. $100,000. Using, of course, what we call sweat equity, using the villagers who come together. You know, nowadays, you used to call it, I think it was Lipke or something like that, where everybody come together, the ladies cook the food, the men bring the rum, and everybody come together and build the house. It's a similar concept. Those all of us will know. When they build a house in the village long time, everybody came together. Even the children would walk with a paint pan and carry water and come carry cement and so on. Come together. And it's based on the same principle that the Prime Minister put in place. And that program won the IDB President's Award last year for innovation and creativity. That program has been so good to us that we have spread it across the length and breadth. And it's all based on social survey, ladies and gentlemen. It's based on a social survey that LSA done throughout the length and breadth. It's based on a needs basis. So we have duplicated that program in Ralph-Panalgas, in St. Joseph, in Marabella, and we continue to do so throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. We continue to survey our squatter sites. We have a number of young people in the field right now, roughly 116 of them who have trained, go out in the field to get a map, and see what is the disposition right now. The two largest areas of squatting in Trinidad and Tobago, in fact, Toco Sandy Grande and Point Fortin. It's continuing to increase. But we have to find ways and means to treat to that. As the Minister of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, we've seen encroachment in forest reserve areas. We've seen encroachment in a number of different areas. But as a caring government, we'll continue to treat it within the law, of course. Not to encourage squatters, but of course to treat with those who we can assist as much as possible. We continue to disburse housing grants, the emergency shelter grants of $15,000 for people who have experienced hazards like fire, floods, and so on. We continue to disburse emergency shelter grant and also the housing improvement grant, total of $15,000 in 2 tranches that we give to persons who would apply. Now there's a large application base right now, and we're processing them as speedily as we can, given releases and funding. But we've treated everyone as long as we have the funding so to do. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development continue to implement government's strategy and purpose to provide low and middle-income housing with regularized security of tenure throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. And let me briefly touch, of course, having a captain audience here on the Point Fortin as the MP for Point Fortin. In 2015, the Prime Minister at Market Garden in Point Fortin, in one of our public meetings, said to the people of Point Fortin that this period is Point Fortin time. And so he gave us our Point Fortin Hospital, ladies and gentlemen. Be ready for us? Come 2020. He has given us the Point Fortin Highway. Point Fortin, the San Fernando Highway, I call it. He has given us the Mahika Oval, the home of sports and so on. He has given us the Point Fortin Fire Station. And so we continue to show improvement, and we continue to ensure that Point Fortin is developed also. To the candidates, I urge you once again, war has been declared. Go outside there aggressively and win the vote. Influence the voters. Don't leave anyone standing who tell you they're not voting. You are the ones to influence them. You are the frontline troops. We have the general in the back. The general is in the back. He also leading from in front. Ensure that you carry out his wishes. Bring in the votes on December 2nd. And then we will sing once again, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail. I thank you.
Moving, so never stop believing. We getting it done. A new country we building. This country first we choosing.
Yes, you heard it, ladies and gentlemen. We are at war, but we will defeat our enemy. We will beat them in the north. We will beat them in the east. We will beat them in the west. And we will beat them in the south and bring home the Siparia Regional Corporation. Now, our communities in the southwest are very close. We are like family and we support each other. So please allow me to acknowledge the candidates for the neighboring borough. You've heard from the MP. Now let me just introduce the members for the Point Fortin Borough Corporation. Representing Egypt, Kwesi Thomas. Newlands Mahika, Mr. Ronald Carrington. For Hollywood, we have Kennedy Richards. New Village, Mr. Leslie Pascal. Captiville Fanny Village, the Princess of the Lot, Miss Brianna Fortune John. And for Tisha Guapo, we have Mr. Lyndon Harris. Let's hear it up for the candidates for the Point Fortin Borough. The next speaker to take the stage is a banker by profession. He held a long and distinguished career in the banking sector, rising to the position of Deputy Managing Director of the Republic Bank Group, and also served as a Managing Director for a number of their international subsidiaries. He joined the cabinet led by Dr. Keith Rowley in 2017 as the Minister of Public Utilities, where he gets to live out his personal mantra, service to humanity is the greatest work ever. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the coordinator for the Faizabad constituency, your party vice chairman, and the election coordinator for the Siparia Regional Corporation. Let's give it up for Senator the Honorable Robert Lee Ham.
Only the PNM understands. We love you so we take good care of you. Only the PNM has a plan. In service to the people, stable and strong. One leader, one party, you can depend on. PNM has a vision, PNM has a plan. We take good care of you, PNM understands. We love you so we take good care of you. Only the PNM understands. We love you so we take good care of you. Only the PNM has a plan.
Thank you very much, Ms. Olivier. Dr. the Honorable Heath Christopher Rowley, Member for Digomartin West, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and political leader of the People's National Movement. The Honorable Clarence Rambarat, Minister of Agriculture. The Honorable Major General Retired Edmund Dillon, Member of Parliament for Point Forte and Minister of Housing and Urban Development. A round of applause. Ms. Donnell Hall Alexander, candidate for the electoral district of Siparia, East San Francisco South. Other cabinet colleagues, I see our Minister of Foreign Affairs is here. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the Southland. Candidates for the upcoming local government election in the area of Siparia. Yeah. And in the area of Point Fortin. A round of applause. You, the foot soldiers and members of the People's National Movement, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and all of us and all the people who are viewing us on the wide web and television stations, etc. A hearty good evening. Good evening. You know, I really like that song, you know. We love you so we take good care of you, only the PNM understand. We love you so we take good care of you, only the PNM have a plan. You know, I was sitting there and I say to myself, boy, you know, this PNM really have a plan and has always had a plan for Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, I sit here and there's a lot of nostalgia sitting here in this hall. I mean, I walk up those stairs and I know myself as a young boy coming down to this market. And I'm from this area. I mean, I went to school right in Siparia Boys RC School, one of the best primary schools in Trinidad and Tobago. So here I am sitting there and I'm remembering, I mean, you know, my great-grandfather came here as an immigrant from Dominica. My father went to the same Siparia Boys RC School. And as an apprentice at the age of 13, he always reminds me that at 13 he took his bicycle and rode down to work. You understand? And that was his first job as an apprentice in TPD. He always reminds me about walking home to leave Siparia Boys RC, going up to our house that still exists in Digans Village, and walking home and walking back, barefooted, going to school. That's the kind of humble beginnings that I came from. That's my parents. My mother worked her whole life in colonial life right down there. Mr. Ramdani's office, right in Siparia. And here I am as a result of P&M plan for Trinidad and Tobago. They were able to take a son, produce 2 kids, send us to secondary school, something they never thought about, send us to university, and bring us back here. And as I said, God has really blessed us and have me here now as a minister and cabinet minister in this government. That is P&M plan. That is P&M working for you. And that is what P&M has done to every single family that is part of this Trinidad and Tobago. We have been able, with successive governments, to be able to craft and build a society whereby simple people like ourselves have been able to move from nothing within 1 generation and could move from humble beginnings without a house to be able to have a house, have a job, send your kids to university, and be able to live successful lives. So that song that we singing last year, I think that was the song that we came up with. We love you so. We took good care of you because P&M understand. And P&M have a plan. They have always had a plan. And I said, thank you for P&M in this country. And as Dylan said, great is the P&M. Great is the P&M, and we will always prevail because of that. But you know, as I traverse during this time now as the coordinator, and I traverse the length and breadth of the Siparia Regional Corporation, a corporation that has been under the UNC control for a number of years. What to me is clearly obvious is that the UNC never had a plan. They never had a plan. When they get in control of something, it is only about themselves. And that's the difference between the P&M and the UNC, you know, people. We are about building, we are about developing, we are about growing people. The legacy of the UNC in national government is the fact that a few millionaires and billionaires have survived. And you could point to them, and you know that this one became a billionaire, and this one became a billionaire because they didn't just thief, you know, they thief for generations. You understand? They had some generational thieving. They didn't thief alone just for 1 generation, right? It's going on and on and on. But that is the difference. We are about, and it strikes me when you look at this corporation, we are about development, we are about growth, we are about governance. They are about themselves. So that is the development that happens, the development of a few. And therefore, when you traverse and you move from Cedros, where I've been, and you move to Palo Seco, you move to Erin, you move to Faizabad, you move to San Francisco, you move to Siparia, wherever you choose to go, wherever they are managing, you do not see any development. And what you see is an infrastructure. What I have seen walking this area is a place that is begging for some tender, loving care. The infrastructure is falling apart around us. Isn't that not so? And that is why when I talk about moving us from darkness into light, and I have made the pledge that this is the time that we need to bring this Siparia Regional Corporation into the loving arms of the P&M. I am saying that because it is time that Siparia gets good governance. It is time that Siparia gets good representation. And if you want to put the words governance and representation in one sentence, the only place that you could finish that sentence with is with a vote P&M. Because those things don't go with a UNC. And that is clearly what Siparia Regional Corporation needs. The area, as I said, you look at the drains and you look at the things that are not working. The things that people that you complain about, or when people ask me why we're not getting this, why we're not getting that, and the simple things that they want. They want the grass in the area cut. That falls under the regional corporation to do. They want a drain in the place fixed. That falls under the regional corporation to do. And those are the simple things that they are not doing. And therefore, that is why we are going to go out there, and because of their poor service, we are going to move them out of office. Because they don't know about getting the job done. We have shown you, and you have heard all the ministers that have come up here talk about what getting the job done is all about. You understand? Getting the job done. And as the Prime Minister said last night, sometimes in getting the job done, a man and woman has to do what a man and woman has to do. You understand? It requires you as a man who are leader to sometimes make tough decisions. And that is also about getting the job done. But after that, you could see the benefits of those tough decisions, because your mindset is all about love. Your mindset is about betterment. That is what, so if you make those tough decisions with a mindset about love and a mindset about betterment, you know good things will come out of them. Because it's not about spite and hatred like what we had with the UNC. And therefore, as we heard last night, we are already starting to see benefits. One of the big hard decisions that this economy and this region had to face was the closing down of Petrotrin. We had a situation where we had an albatross over our necks that was potentially, when I sat in cabinet, they said the best estimate, listen, the best estimate for Petrotrin going forward was that it will lose $2 billion a year. That's the best. And the worst, that it could go to 10. But the best estimate, $2 billion a year. We announced last night that Heritage was able to post their first 12 months results. 12 months results ending the 30th of September 2019. And they did not make $100 million in profit. They didn't make 2. They didn't make 3. They didn't make 4. They didn't make 5. They didn't make 6. They made $700 million in profits. That is turnaround. That is getting the job done. That is performance. You're talking about moving an organization. Let's picture this, You're moving an organization that was earmarked to lose $2 billion to making $700 million in profits. That's a turnaround of close to $3 billion. That is what we have done. That is what we have done. That is what taking a decision and making a hard decision and now taking the organization and making it profitable. And now you have a profitable organization. We, the people of this area, understand what it is, or what it was to have Trintopec, a company designated to just simply drilling oil, We understand that. We understood that. And therefore, we have now moved back into that situation. So Petrotrin is now in the right footing. We have put the economy on the right footing. All right? And we are moving to dealing with all the situations in this country. Let me spend a few minutes on public utilities. When you look at this area, a lot of times people hear me talk about public utilities and they think, well, wow, I am not just the Minister of Water. There are other areas that I manage. And therefore, within our period, we all know we have lit up a lot of grounds. The people, we are about to look at putting grounds right now in Mulch and Trace, right down the road there. They will be getting their grounds lit within the next week. Because of representation, I have made a promise to you, the people of Fyzabad and Altagracia Trace, that they also will be getting a ground lit. We went down to Rosilac, and we got the ground down in Rosilac lit, and it's about to start. We have been working. We went in Palaseco. We have been lighting grounds down there. We went in Sobo. We have been lighting grounds down there. We have been fixing this place throughout the length and breadth of the Siparia Regional Corporation. Just last night, the Prime Minister announced a committee under which I am going to be partly responsible for. And I am going to see about what we need to do within 3 months. We will be bringing a plan for the JP Small Velodrome in Palaseco. So we are getting the job done. And before I leave, I see I get a little note, so I have to kind of obey my chairman. All right? We know that we have a problem with water. We know we have a problem with water, but let us be honest. We have had this problem with water, not now. This problem with water didn't start 1 year ago. It didn't start 2 months ago. It didn't start 3 years ago. We have been having this problem to water for a long while. What I assure you is that we are drilling wells in Palaseco. We are drilling wells in Chatham. We are drilling wells in Granville. We are drilling wells in Cedrus. And therefore, we are bringing more water into the system. What I assure you is that WASA, as we speak, is working to take over all the operations of the old Petrotrin, and therefore we were going to be upgrading those systems and ensuring that we upgrade the water supply that is provided to Palaseco, Vecini, and all those areas. What I assure you is that we are improving the booster station in Teak. We have improved the booster station in the Oropuch booster station. And when we are finished doing those jobs, you will see an improved supply in the southwest Trinidad and Tobago. I am from here. I live in this area. I grew up in this area. And therefore, when you don't have problems, I have family here who do have problems too. I hear and I feel your pain. And I am committed to make an improvement in your water system going forward. You cannot continue like this. We are working on developing this part of Trinidad and Tobago. Just before I left to come here, I had a chat with the TSTT CEO, and I know that they are presently working on a plan to lay out and improve the broadband services that are being provided. Bottom line is, at the end of the period, by June next year, the people of this area will be getting improved Wi-Fi services and improved broadband services, which will allow for them to be able to have access to the internet, something as basic, and be able to have a strong signal so that you will be able to be brought into the 21st century. So we are getting the job done. We are doing what we need to do because we care about you. We care about you. We care about your development. And bit by bit, even though the money has been less, we have been managing this economy, and we have managed this economy with $20 billion less. At the height of our time, we were $20 billion less. And we managed this economy through the last 4 years. And I could say that we still have inflation at 1%. We have unemployment at 5%. We have a stable currency and not one gazetted civil servant. Should I take on? Not one gazetted civil servant has been let out of a job. So ladies and gentlemen, we are getting the job done. We're getting the job done for you. And therefore, as we get the job done, we are asking you for your support. We are asking you to go out and also get the job done for all the candidates that we have put out. And therefore, on December the 2nd, I want all of us to say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
You can depend on PNM has a vision, PNM has a plan. We take care of you, PNM understands. We love you so, we take good care of you. Only the PNM understands. We love you so, we take good care of you.
PNM is about development, and you heard it from the man who is moving us from darkness into light. From recreation ground to LED light bulbs in your homes. Let's give it up again for Senator the Honorable Robert LaHunt. Represented here tonight, we are pleased to have candidates from 3 corporations. So allow me to recognize those going up for us, our standard bearers of the Penal Debe Regional Corporation. Representing for La Fortune Debe North, Ms. Judy Sagdale. For the electoral district of Penal, we have Sunil Sachet. Representing Queen Amman Diablo, Mr. Keith Brown. For Rochad Road, Barrapore East, Mr. Sunil Banarsi. For the electoral district of Laramie, Ms. Cindy N.V. Dawich. Debe East L'Esperance Union Hall, we have Ms. Alva Holder. The Palmas Hermitage, John Curtis Young. Our candidate for Barrapore West, Kato Harry Prasad. Representing Debe South, Deoda Jagasa. And the electoral district of Brampton, Mr. Steve Rampasad. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my esteemed pleasure to invite to the podium the man who has rescued our nation. He has brought back good governance to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. The man who has returned the office of the Prime Minister to its rightful home at Whitehall. A man who is returning the seat of the nation's parliament to the Red House after 8 years at the waterfront. A man whom we all know and love. Our leader, the political leader of the only true party, the People's National Movement. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm Siparia welcome to the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, political leader of the People's National Movement, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley.
Anytime that you have to bid, but when
thank you very much. Siparia in the house. PNM Siparia house. Sounds good. Thank you very much, Member of Parliament for Libre, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, Nicole Olivier, my cabinet colleagues, Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Von Dillon, retired General of the Army of Trinidad and Tobago, leading us into battle in the southwestern corner. I see no pips on my shoulder, but he said I'm a field marshal. One upset Conlon, all right? She will want too. But my colleague, Minister of Agriculture, Senator Clarence Rambarat, and of course, your own Robert Lee Hunt, Minister of Public Utilities, and of course, your candidate on stage with us tonight, Colonel Halls Alexander. And all our standard bearers introduced tonight here in Siparia, we are very proud of you. Your communities are proud of you. Your families are proud of you. And your party is ecstatic about your presence and the job that you are doing. Ladies and gentlemen, the local government election is well underway. As a matter of fact, it's coming to a close. Tonight I have a few minutes to talk to you because we're running a little bit behindhand, but it was my pleasure to sit here and listen to 3 ministers of government give you pertinent information, in many instances specific to your own issues and all along your own interests. These elections were due, and we said from day one that the elections will be called whenever they're due, and we call this election so that it can be had within a day of the existing corporation going out. The corporation goes out on the 29th of November, and you are going to the polls on the next working day. Isn't that how it's supposed to be? And when we said we were going to do that, certain people from Siparia had a lot to say, and they just wouldn't believe us. Because, people in this country have been accustomed to being lied to for so long that when you speak to them straight up and tell them the truth, sometimes they have difficulty dealing with it. And they were sure that we were going to play some kind of game with the local government election. But we have not been playing any games with the business of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and we have nothing to hide. We said we'll call the local election. Today is election week. Tuesday night, the election due on Monday, and we're going to beat them in the north, we're going to beat them in the south, we're going to beat them in the east, we're going to beat them in the west, and we're going to beat them in the center. Because we know we have been doing the job that you have elected us to do. And we know that at the end of the day, you will judge us on the quality of governance and what we do to bring an improvement in the quality of your life or the prospects for your future, and not only for you, but for your children and grandchildren. Elections are important. So let me say that to all of you here in Siparia and across Trinidad, the local government election is important. And for those of you who believe, like I met a man this evening, I was out this evening with Maurice Alexander in Faizabad. We walked quite a lot up there this afternoon before I came down here. And I met a man on the pavement, and like other things, I approached him to ask him for the support from Maurice Alexander. And he said, hello in the name of Jesus. And then he said to me that I don't take no part in supporting no politician. I said, okay, well, that's a good point of view. But when Jesus asks you, who you left it to, you'll tell Jesus, I leave it to you. You understand? It's all right to be a man of Jesus. But if you leave your country to anybody, Jesus would not be happy. So if you're a child of Jesus, come out and vote. Ladies and gentlemen, this is important because at the end of the day, what you are doing, the election is about choosing managers for your affairs. As simple as that. It's about choosing managers. In some countries, they have no choice. They take what they get. In our system, in local government every 3 years, THA every 4 years, in general election every 5 years, you have the power to choose who you put to run your affairs and who you put to represent you. It's not the perfect system, but of all systems, it's the best. And if you don't choose to participate, then who you will blame after when things don't go right? Because things tend to not go right. If you drive out of your garage with your car and just start to mash the X, I give you 15 yards before you crash the car. But if you have a driver who is in control to steer it and guide it, you can go around Trinidad over and over and over and over and even probably drive to Tobago. Because we have good ferries that will take you there. Somebody has to be in control to control the direction that you go, how fast you go, when you turn left, when you turn right, when you slow down, when you speed up. And that is what a government has to do at local government and at central government. And let me say something to the people in the Siparia Corporation and those other corporations that are run by the UNC. Stop telling the people that the reason why you have not performed in your corporation is because you didn't get any money from the PNM government. Stop that stupidity. We have been allocating whatever the parliament has allocated to local government. All the corporations in Trinidad, there are 14 of them. None of them get all the money they need. Nobody lives in a land of milk and honey. All of them are required to do more with less. I never see more bush than I see in Siparia. And you want to come and tell me that you didn't get enough money to cut the grass by the roadside? The grass wants to hit you in the face in the car, and there's a corporation there. And I will say to them, all the money that you've got is not what you got, it's what you did with it. And if you want to tell me, that you didn't get enough money to cut that bush and that grass on the side of the road, and Siparia has to be like that, let me tell you all where they're carrying you all. They're carrying you all in the jungle. You know why? If all the other corporations, you go through Tunapuna, you go through Arima, you go through San Grande, you go through Diego Martin, you don't see that. Because we in the PNM, we're not going to tolerate that from our local government people. I have called out chairmen of corporations on the phone and asked them, go down by the cemetery and see what is going on in there and see how tall the grass is. Because I'm sure you have on your payroll people whose job it is to cut the grass in the cemetery. And you go down there and tell me why grass is growing in the pavement. Minister Ambarat will tell you how many times I've called him and said, why is grass growing so tall in the drain around the Queen's Park Savannah? Because I know that there is enough resource. As bad as things are, we do have enough resources, and we do have people on the payroll that if you put them out there, the grass is not supposed to turn jungle in the drain and the bush hit you in the eye. Okay. But of course, they sit there and do all kinds of things because they have this built-in thing to tell you the government didn't give you enough money, and those UNC people could never get enough money, central government or local government. Because I can tell you tonight, speaking as leader of the PNM, I know of no instance in local government where anybody in the local government is before the law for taking a bribe of any size, whether it's $15, $1,500, or $15 million. We don't subscribe to that. Don't. We try to make do and make the most of what we've got, hoping that the next time around we'll get more. And here's the joke. If you're not going to make the basic improvements with what you're getting now, and you're abolishing property tax, what is the arrangement that you are holding out for an improvement in local government in Trinidad? If what you have now is the same kind of money you were getting when they were in government, waiting on the Minister of Finance to give them some money to run the corporation, and you can only get money in the context of what the Minister of Finance has at the national level. And if you are telling me you are going to abolish local government, you're going to abolish property tax so that nobody in Siparia or anywhere in Trinidad will pay $1 or $100 towards the services of the region that you will collect, that you will control, that you will use on yourselves. I mean, look at all these fine houses here in Siparia. But look at the drain. Look at the road. And you are telling me that your quality of life will not improve if you were making that small tax collection which your corporation will use to improve the quality of life in your neighborhood. Then how do you intend to improve it? But they live on blaming the PNM. You know how many political parties have been formed, die, resurrect, form, reform, and the only thing that they are good for, the only thing they're good for is to bar talk the PNM. We are contesting against a political party in Port of Spain called something, I haven't even mentioned it. But it's led by Louis Lee Singh. He wastes all PNM time in General Council. When I became leader of the PNM, I opened up the party and I said, I'm going to give everybody a chance to prove themselves. They want me to leave Louis Lee Singh alone. I said, he talks a lot. Maybe behind that talk, there's something positive that we can all benefit from. Leave Louis Lee Singh alone. I passed that advice for many quarters, and I go and make Louis Lee Singh mayor of Port of Spain. Who tell me to do that? He do all manner of evil, including opening a highway in St. James, where people were standing on one side in St. James, they can't cross the road to go on the other side because traffic is passing at 60 miles an hour. He raised a tax that is supposed to be there only nominally on the tennis court. So poor people, children, could come to the public court. They couldn't go to the other tennis courts where other people pay. But they were paying $12 to use the court at lights. But this is something you want to encourage people to do so that the young boys and young girls don't go off and get themselves in trouble in all kinds of ways. Encourage them to come. In fact, even pay them to come. It's from $12 to $60. And when I said, but you can't do that, it's not a money-making thing. He's a businessman. This is a business. I said, no, this is social service and social justice. I'm the mayor. I'm the mayor. And you know what happened? You know what happened? The councillors in the corporation were so upset with him when he wrote a letter attacking the political leader of the PNM and give it to the UNC to attack me in the parliament, you know. The corporation members wanted to fire him. I called him to Balize House and said, no, leave that. His time will run out. It comes to an end. And when it comes to an end, that is the end. You know, he in Port of Spain now with party. And like everybody else, the sole reason for the party coming into being and the entire campaign of that party is bad talking the PNM. The one good thing about it is that the party is based on latrine. But when you come, for the last 3 to 4 weeks that we have been campaigning, your government has used the fact of this election and your attention to educate you about your business. We told you quite a bit about local government, what we have been able to do, what we have not been able to do, and why. And we gave you the continued commitment that local government reform is going to take place. The legislation, so to do, is in the Parliament, in a joint select committee, and God willing, it will come out of joint select committee, it will be enacted into law, and we will move forward in a giant step in local government reform. We're in the courthouse over the lifeblood of local government, which is the property tax that you can collect and keep and spend and use to improve your local district. We're going to win that battle, and then we're going to do that. Everywhere else in the world, this is a tax that you expect to pay. Once you have property in a town or a village, you expect to pay it because you expect to be served. You don't expect the grass to overtake you. Like, I've been all through Siparia in the last few weeks. And I must tell you, I'm disappointed. I expected to see at least some of the grass cut in some of the drains. Yeah? But they're leaving it so, to be able to tell you the P&M didn't get that money to cut grass. You understand? And then, of course, if you tell them, but the grass in Arima is not like this, they jump to race, racial discrimination. They go Martin and Arima, right? That is their lifeblood. Falling about race. But we know what it is. It's just general worthlessness. That's what it is. Lack of pride. Because you live here. And if you will allow your place to become like this, to be able to blame somebody else, it's an absence of pride. We want to make Siparia sparkling, and we promise you borough status, and you will get it in short order. The next borough in Trinidad will be the borough of Siparia. And that is not news tonight. I promise you that in the last election, expecting that we would have gone further with respect to the reform. As soon as the legislation is passed and we are on that track, making the progress we expect to make, that we will make, the next borough in Trinidad will be the borough of Siparia. In the last few weeks, night after night, ministers of government have been able to come to you and talk to you about what's happening in the portfolio, what you have been getting, what is going on, what you can expect in the weeks and months and years ahead. The Minister of Finance, tonight you heard a short discourse. In 20 minutes, the Minister of Housing and Urban Development gave you a dynamic package of what is happening with respect to housing and urban development. Of course, he didn't touch on urban development. That was another whole hour. But Nicole wouldn't allow it. The Minister of Health could tell you all that we're doing. From Point Fortin to Arima, from Roxborough to Diego Martin, a lot is happening with respect to the infrastructure and, of course, the healthcare delivery improvements, giving you statistics as to what improvements we are making in healthcare. Ladies, I'm sure, especially those of you who are expecting to be in the family way, I'm sure you feel good hearing your Minister of Health telling you that in the prescribed period of recent months, we have not lost a mother during delivery. That is a serious statistic. And it didn't happen by accident. Working with all the health caregivers, managing our pregnant women and bringing them to a safe delivery, we now have that statistic which stands out, not in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the world. You think the UNC want to hear that? Them just into the bar talk business. The bar talk business. You know, they talk about agriculture. They can't point to a single thing that they have done to advance agriculture in the country except some stupid talk from the leader about bringing back sugarcane growing in Caroni. You know, I know, your children know, the bank knows, everybody knows that ain't gonna happen. But just say it, and it sounds good to her. You know? I don't know how many of you know Andy Cap, the cartoon. Andy has a partner. Andy is playing cricket. They came from the pub, right? So Andy is missing every ball bowled to him. And his partner walked up to him and said, Andy, what's going on? He said, man, I'm seeing 3 balls. Which one shall I hit? Partner just shake his, look, hit the one in the middle. That is what driving them, you know. They must be seeing 3 Trinidad and Tobago. And they decided to just go down the middle with one. So we used to have cane. Let me talk about bring back cane. We used to have a refinery. Let me say we go open it back. And of course, that is not what you get on the PNM platform. We take you into real time, real issues, and every minister, tonight you heard the Minister of Public Utilities, he could have told you. He understands your water shortage problem. It's a geological problem. We don't have rivers here to extract water from. We bring water in from outside or we extract from groundwater. This area has grown and developed. We have to develop the water supply. He gave you specifics on what is happening with that. New wells, improvement of the oil field water supplies, and of course, we bring as much water as we could from outside. And of course, we are operating the agency, WASA, better. WASA? You remember when we came into office? You had the same water problem. Let them not pretend that you had a good water supply in this area. You had the same water problem. This year we had a protracted drought. Even as we're coming to the end of the rainy season, the reservoir is still, 60%? We are still 40% below the level of the reservoir. So as we go into the next dry season, we have to be expecting to ration water again because the rainy season did not bring a filling of the reservoir in Trinidad. Tobago's reservoir is full because the rain fell in the catchment area. Unfortunately, this year, with all the rain we've got, not enough has fallen above the reservoir at Arena. That main dam for the country is at 60% with about 2 or 3 weeks to go for the rainy season. But of course, we now have, telling you, all of a sudden, the water problem is the government suffering you. But when they were spending money hand over fist, giving away money, taking money, they didn't know about you and water, you know. They wasn't concerned about you not getting water here, you know. Because all of these issues you have, every single one of them, at the bottom of the list, is how much it will cost to fix it. And if you don't have the money, you've wasted the money, you've stolen the money, you won't be able to fix it. So you're mama-guying people now. And you know the hard part about it? It is not a new party like the Louis Leasing party that come in and telling you, so I say, okay, they haven't had a chance, you know. The UNC had 2 chances at running this country. 5 years under Pandey and 5 years under Kamla Prasad Bisesa. So let them not pretend that these problems are new to you. They can't point to a single thing in agriculture. Every constituency that is agriculture in this country, they have it. And you know, when we try to do something positive, it's to pull it down. It's to bar talk it. It's to damage it. It's to block it. We have a government farm of 1,100 acres of good land up in Aripo. We have public servants on it because we used to use that farm to breed cattle, to supply farmers with cattle so that the farmers would continue producing milk, cattle, and so on. It got to the point where we could not supply farmers because the farmers couldn't compete with the milk importation since the WTO came into being. And that had a negative effect on our farming in milk production. But the farm is there. The land is there. We as taxpayers, 1,100 acres of land, we had public servants up there mining coal. And of course, you know what that means. Nothing good going on there. This government under this minister, we went out and said to the private sector, come and give us proposals using your effort, your money, your entrepreneurship. Government took the workers from there and put them to work elsewhere where we hope that they're working. And we got a proposal out of the package where the private sector has come forward to invest $30 million of their money and relieve taxpayers of mining coal in Aripo, and that 1,100 acres would not be wasted but will be properly utilized to produce milk and meat for the country. UNC want no part of that. They want no part of it. They start lying that the land have gravel under it, and what the government has done is to give their friend to operate quarry. That's the behavior. When you come to a PNM meeting, you would have heard from all the ministers that took part in this campaign, because we use this campaign as an educational exercise, because we want every time you listen to a PNM meeting on the media, you watch it on TV, or you're present in front of the microphone, that when you leave here, you must be better informed, better educated, and know some more about your country. And that is why tonight these ministers could have come here and spoken to you in the way they have spoken to you about live issues that cannot be contradicted. We have a few days to go. We've said all kinds of things. Have you observed that the UNC has not been able to engage the substance of our discourse and take issue with anything we've said? Go back to the budget. The Minister of Finance, at the beginning of this campaign, in the parliament, put a budget out. Inflation at 1%, he reported. 1% inflation. Unemployment at 4%. You know what their response to that was? They thought it was a general election. So they made a manifesto for a general election. The leader going on platform to campaign for a general election and says what? One, they're going to devalue the currency because they're going to leave it to float and let he who have more money get whatever foreign exchange is available. And of course, you know what that means. It means that you, the masses of the population, would feel the pain from that. Because once the currency starts to move, we who live by so many imports, everything that you are wearing, everything you're eating, everything you're drinking that is imported, including the chicken you love so much, where the egg and the feed are imported, you will pay more. While a small handful of lucky people will enrich themselves because the currency is moving in value. And of course, if you make the mistake and go to buy a higher purchase fridge or stove, as many of you do, she will allow interest rates to rise. Well, you don't have to go to UWI to know that if interest rates are rising, prices will be rising with it, because nobody's going to give you higher purchase and subsidize you. And of course, we shut down the refinery that were losing $2 billion a year, guaranteed, at best case. And she said, no, I'm going to open it back. Open it back how? Open it back how? We have restructured Petrotrin. We don't like to say we shut down Petrotrin, because when you shut down something, that means you close it and you pack it and you leave it and you're gone. We have restructured it. We created 4 companies from what was Petrotrin that was guaranteed to lose $2 billion a year as best case. We created a holding company called Trinidad Petroleum Holding Company, so that company becomes the owner of the oil business and whatever it is. That company now owns another company called Heritage, and Heritage is tasked. You go look for oil, find oil, produce oil, sell oil. That is what is happening now. And that is why at the end of the first financial year, instead of having our heads in our chests and wondering where the next thing going to come from and who's going to save us, which angel going to come and save us, we can report to you that we are no longer in that oil business, in the business of losing $2 billion a year going forward. But we can now report to you $700 million in profit in one of those companies that we have created. And then the Siparia company, which we created because since we weren't producing the fuel that we were using in our vehicles, we had to import it. So we created a company to import and to sell it. That company too is making a profit. The refinery shut down, yes. We paid $2.8 billion to the workers who were affected, yes. We put the refinery out to see who might want to use it, who might have oil that we never had. Because what we were doing was importing oil and losing money on every barrel. But if there are people, and there are people, who have oil that they could put in there and use it, even if it is operated and we don't make $1 from it, by the very fact that it's being operated, you have to hire people, you got to pay taxes, you got to use services, and you become a part of the economy again. But you are not in the treasury of Trinidad and Tobago. They have a problem with that. You know, all the things we told you about what we did with the energy sector, throughout this campaign, you heard a whole lot about the energy sector, how we renewed contracts, how we are getting success, how we get additional monies by negotiations, all of those things we were telling you. And of course, law and order. The Attorney General gives you in great detail what we have done to treat with this whole question of law and order into which it exists, this chronic criminality in Trinidad and Tobago, how are we dealing with it? You see, as we do that, we focus on educating you. And then we had a meeting in Gandhi last night, led by the leader of the opposition, because the opposition is an important part of the country's management. I served 3 terms in opposition, and I know what has to go on in opposition if you are going to be of any use in government. I served in opposition when the PNM lost in 1986. I served on WhatsApp board. I came to the parliament in 1987, January, and served 5 years under the NAR. It was a learning experience for me. And then I came into government under Patrick Manning in 1991. We went into opposition in 1995. We never worked as hard as we did then to get out of opposition back into government, because mark my word, opposition life ain't easy. Very easy. But you have to work in the opposition. You have to make yourself useful and knowledgeable, and to win the confidence of the population if you want to move from opposition to government. We were in government from 2001 to 2010, and then I'm in opposition again. And for 5 years, I was in opposition. I made 5 budget responses. And I could tell you, with the aid of my colleagues around me, I prepared every single one of those budget responses myself. Because I want to understand the country, and I want to understand what we are offering if I'm going to be in charge of it. So when the opposition is out there and all they could do is obstruct anything the government puts forward, but talk any person who is PNM, come up with the most ridiculous and outrageous conspiracies, and haven't got a single useful idea to put to you. So here we are. Throughout the entire local government campaign, they have not been able to engage the issue of local government reform or local government at all. Not at all. So last night in Gandhi, here are the topics in Gandhi. But before we get there, during the campaign, we had to bring to your attention, because it came out in the media, it was in the government system before as part of the general basket of criminality that was being investigated in the security system way. So when it came out in the media, the government had to tell you what we knew about it and where we were. This whole thing about Cambridge Analytica, which simply means the UNC take all your private data. If you ever use WASA, Tiantec, TSTT, pensions, social services, anywhere data is collected for people, under law in Trinidad and Tobago, those agencies that collected that data are duty-bound under law to keep that data private and to use it only for the purpose for which it was collected. And the only person who could give approval for that to be used by a third party is you, the person whose data it is. And if anybody does otherwise, you're breaking the law. So when I get advice from some expert that we are talking foolishness about Cambridge Analytica because Google and Microsoft always collecting data when you use it, they could do what they want, Google and Microsoft, and do what they want. That is their platform, that is their technology. But our law says these bodies of data are to be kept private. So when a political party like the UNC put their imps out to collect this data and give it to foreigners to make profiles of you, to be able to target you for election purposes, they have broken the law and they've acted like criminals that they are. And when we raise this with you, it having come to our public knowledge first from the British Parliament, the American Parliament, where these things are still being investigated, and the company was so afraid of what it had done, Cambridge Analytica shut itself down, the company is shut down. But the imps who was operating it, still operating. And the UNC that has been lying about it, that it never happened, still have your data. And they start to call you again. They're calling you again, eh? And you want to know how they get your number, eh? And they're telling you, no, we didn't do that. But they start calling you again. In the same way, penetrating your privacy, using your private number to call you, to ask you to vote for the UNC if you're stupid or if you're crazy. That's going on right now. It's going on right now. They're back to it because they do not intend to give it up, because what they have is valuable to them. They've created a political profile, a political database, using the databases of the country that they've stockpiled, and believe that that will get them back into election, into government. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you to disregard all canvassing by the UNC, because that is part of the criminality that we are questioning them about, and they wouldn't answer. So the next thing, she's on platform last night, and here the UNC big bomb. Went to Sangre Grande, and the Minister of Works, Rohan Sinanan, is to answer the UNC as to whether, in fact, where they built some bridge somewhere in the Grande area, whether he was the owner of the land. And she wants an answer as though, well, that is earth-shattering. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sinanans, like anybody else, I'm not defending anybody. Nobody. Everybody in my government, every tub sit on its own bottom. But the level of stupidity has to be addressed, because this is the official opposition of the country, trying to give you the impression in an election 4 days from whenever, to tell you that the Minister of Works somehow have questions to answer because a bridge was built. Which ministry builds bridges in this country? The Ministry of Works. What she's implying is that somebody went and decided to build a bridge on the basis that the land belonged to Sinanan. Not that the road requires a bridge. Not that the road requires a bridge to link this part of the road across the river to the other part of the road. But it is because Sinanan owned the land why the bridge is being built. You ever hear more stupidness? And that is a prime minister who has to answer as to why there's a commission of inquiry now taking place, as to why and who and wherefore they moved the land acquisition on the Point 14 to San Fernando Highway from $475 million to over $1 billion. And there are people who got hundreds of millions of dollars for bullgrass bush that nobody wanted. And there are people who got all kinds of monies in that program, and the country is going to find out because a commission of inquiry is taking place now, about to start hearing soon, to find out what happened there. But she gone to Sangre Grande to ask Rohan to tell she about some bridge that was built somewhere. As if she was the government, the bridge wouldn't have been built because it would have fallen on Rohan Sinanan land. Same nonsense in the Cape roundabout. They award the first contract on Cape roundabout using the same footprint to build it, the overpass. Turns out that Sinanan has some interest in a piece of land there. What are they saying to us? That they would have left the bridge hanging up in the air there over the land? Whether we built it, or the NAR built it, or whoever built it, if you're building the Cape overpass, you have to acquire the land or where the driving cinema was. And they know it, because they did just that. Sinanan came into business, into government long after, and we are building the system for $300 million less than what she was building it for. She doesn't want any answer. as to who was going to get the extra 300 million, but she wanted to answer as to whether he owned the land that the bridge is being built on. I ask you to disregard the UNC and the folly. Let's disregard it. The next big point is that there was an issue at the EBC during the week. Ladies and gentlemen, one of our proudest national institutions is the Election and Boundaries Commission. And we didn't get that description accidentally. Since we became independent in 1962, we have conducted free and fair elections in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have done it through our staff, our EBC board, conducting those elections in a particular way. We have helped out countries outside of Trinidad and Tobago, as far away as Africa. Those countries who got independence long after us, many of them look to us and we've helped them to conduct free and fair elections. So our EBC is a national institution that we should keep as a proud institution. For some reason, the UNC intend to destroy it. As I speak to you now, today, a trial has ended. We haven't got the judgment yet. A trial has ended today, an appeal. Hear it, eh? It went to the court before. They lost it. They appeal it. The trial has gone on, and today was the end of the trial. Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the UNC in the courthouse trying to annul 5 seats that they lost in the last general election. Would you believe that? And as if that is not... last night, she was saying that the EBC is dangerous and telling people to go out and vote early. Good idea. But the reason she's saying that is that if rain fall, the EBC will stop the election and make the PNM win. That was the UNC last night in Sandy Grande. And what happened? What's causing that? The EBC is responsible for early voting. The law is the law, and it cannot be varied according to your whim and fancy. The law says that at the back of each ballot, the returning officer must put his or her initial. How many of you have filled out a form, important or unimportant, and it says, sign, block here, signature there, initial there, and instead of initial, you write James Henry, or you write Harry Tom. It says initial, it didn't say name. Well, of course, if the initial is KR, like Keith Rowley, and I spell Keith Rowley, I mean, you're better off because you had the whole name. And KR could mean Ken Rose, but KR here means Keith Rowley. You might even think it's better to have the whole name. But what did the law say? The law said, put your initial. And if the EBC had left those ballots, which had, instead of initial, had the full name of the person on it, I guarantee you, the UNC would have gone to court and make a legal issue of it, and they would have won because the law says your initial. And what did the EBC do? The EBC, having found out that some returning officers had put more than their initial, making the ballot invalid, decided they had the time, they recalled all those ballots, destroy them, and print new ballots, and not ensuring that nobody puts anything other than initial at the back of it. That is the basis on which Kamala Prasad Bisesa is ridiculing the EBC. And she goes further, you know. She said it is as a result of the PNM putting friend and family to run the EBC. So casting serious aspersion on the leadership of the EBC. The EBC is run by a board of distinguished citizens who have done yeoman work in conducting elections here. You think the UNC care about that? Just destroy it in allegations. But the general manager there is a woman. When she was appointed, she was immediately attacked by the UNC because her surname is something Coffee. and there was a coffee in the cabinet. It matters not to the UNC that the coffee in the cabinet is C-U-F-F-I-E coffee. And this young lady is a C-U-F-F-Y coffee. Kamala Prasad Bisesa said, coffee is coffee, I don't care is who, I got damage it. And while there is so much to treat with in this country, that is her campaign last night in Sandy Grande, that the coffee in EBC is some family of Maxi coffee. And she knows that that is the reason why the election will be stolen. So tonight, I want to give Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa advance notice. Whether it's coffee with the I and E or coffee with the YYE, you have one licking to get on December 2nd. And if my mathematics serves me right, this kind of mad and dotishness that carrying on with is coming from a person who you must sympathize with. Because if you lose one election, it's bad, eh? If you lose two, it's worse. If you lose three, it's worser. And if you lose 10, what I need you for? It's coming up on December 2nd, they're running one after the other. Because she has never been able to provide this country with the kind of leadership that we expect from an opposition leader. Far less a prime minister. You understand? And that is what is driving all of this and trying to destroy our institutions. They obstruct everything we try to do. Could you imagine the other major point she made last night in Sandy Grande? Is that they are not supporting the denial of bail to persons with machine guns. I could tell you for a fact that when she was prime minister, she proposed that persons with handguns should be denied bail. You see how many thousands of people in this country have been killed by handguns? Because in our citizenry, there are these people who believe that they could find a handgun and use it for business or for settling scores, and they've been killing our people like flies for the last 15 years. So when she became prime minister, she suggested to people that guns being so dangerous to us, being responsible for killing so many of us, that if a citizen has a gun, you should be denied bail. The normal handgun might carry between 6 and 15 bullets, okay? And will take a while to be fired. And they're easily manipulated. Because the PNM is now saying that our criminals have moved from handgun to Mac-10 machine pistols to assault weapons now, AR-15s, and they're killing us like flies still, that anybody who finds him or herself in possession of one of these machine guns should be denied bail. And Kamala Prasad Bisesa, it matters not to her that the independents in the majority in the Senate voted for it. Our constitution says we have a parliament with independent senators who would look at what the government is doing, oversee it, and will not support it if the government is misbehaving or is being excessive. On this matter, where only recently our policemen and women putting their lives on the line apprehended somebody with 8 AR-15s. We look at the news all the time in America. People regularly take one of these and go into a school or to a workplace and mow down people. What are we waiting for until they do it in Trinidad and Tobago to make it unbailable? Is that what you're waiting for? And when one man has 8, and within days, another man had 5. And of course, it is now the weapon of choice in Trinidad and Tobago. And the opposition, true to form, didn't vote for it in the Senate, but the independents did. It's coming up in the parliament tomorrow. And Kamala Prasad Bisesa tells all of you that she and her cohorts, a band of merry boys and girls, will not use the authority you gave them to protect you from people who would want to have, who already have, and who will use those assault weapons against the innocent, defenseless people of Trinidad and Tobago. That's what he's telling you. Observe the parliament tomorrow. She gave notice last night in Sandy Grande that they will not be supporting it. So what they're saying to you, it is quite all right for other citizens to find AR-15s available a dime a dozen in South America. It's quite all right. Bring it to Trinidad and Tobago. Choose to bring it here and be guaranteed your freedom the day after they catch you with it. I say to you tonight, this opposition is dangerous to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And what they are doing is abusing the trust of those who sent them to the parliament. But as long as you send people like that to parliament and they behave like that, they're opposing FATCA, they're opposing Global Forum, they vote down anti-gang legislation. Because let me remind you all, every morning you wake up, 2-3 people killed by gangs and revenge killing, and they're killing families. They're going inside people's house with or without AR-15s and killing people. Gangs. And when we go to the parliament to make being in a gang or organizing a gang illegal, the UNC voted against it. The record will show they voted down the anti-gang bill because anything the PNM puts forward for the advancement of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the UNC opposes it. It is only when you made your feelings known to the madness of voting down that bill that they felt that they would have had to pay a political price, so they called for us to come back to Parliament this Saturday or whenever it is, immediately, and to use the Parliament power to change the standing orders, because when a bill is voted down, you can't bring it back under 6 months. But after they voted it down and you were very upset as a people, brought it back within 1 week, and that's how they voted for it, out of fear of you. So what you have to learn from that, if they're afraid of you, they will destroy you. That's what it is. When we brought you the National Investment Fund, something, if you have money to invest, you leave it in the bank. You'll be lucky if you get half of 1%. The government brought a National Investment Fund to raise $4 billion, backed by $8 billion in assets that we recover from CLICO, the securest bond you can ever think of, and to earn 4 or 5 or 6% as against half of 1%. What did the UNC do? They called it a Ponzi scheme and opposed it. So if they're opposing all these things, what are they for? What are they for? They spend the whole term in the opposition bad-mouthing the PNM and calling for election. The one thing they did not do is to file a vote of no confidence in the government they bad talking every day. Because they know the day they make that mistake, they would leave the parliament on their hindquarters. Ladies and gentlemen, when I was opposition leader, within 2 years, I was able to move 2 votes of no confidence in the UNC. Because I identified their shortcomings and their wrongdoings, and I brought it to the parliament and used the parliament to debate it and to alert you as to what was passing for government. We are now in our 5th year. And except talking dotishness about bringing back sugar cane and bringing back refinery that closed down and Ruhan Thief Bridge and foolishness, they have been an absolute nuisance. Absolute nuisance. And on that basis, they're worse in local government. They are worse in local government. Because at least at the national level, they pretend. They pretend. And when they try to expand their base out of the base race that they're into, they end up with Arnold Roberts and live sport. $400 million of criminality. But in local government, they whisper, they talk behind scenes, and all they do is rely on race and religion. That's all they do. and believe that once you are of a certain ethnicity, your vote is theirs. I say to you, we in the PNM, we earn your vote because we want a vote from anybody. As we were told tonight, we are not a party in the ordinary sense of the word. We are a rally for all, cutting across race, color, creed, or class, and we campaign in every seat, in every election, in every part of Trinidad and Tobago, because we are the only national party in Trinidad and Tobago. And that is why we are so proud to present to you the people, mainly young people on this occasion, because we've called out to our young people in Trinidad and in Tobago and said to our young people, wherever you are, in Siparia, in Sijas, in Mayaro, in Tobago, come forward and take responsibility for this country. And in this election, while we may have regaled you with what is happening at the national level, at the ministerial level, we are saying to you, local government is an integral part of the fabric of governance in this country. And we are saying to you that you start out first by screening and getting the best of those who are willing. And of course, those who will come and ask you for your support, we don't take your support for granted. And then we leave it to you. We leave it to you, the electors. 1, to come out and vote. 2, to vote wisely. And 3, to put country before self. And once you do that, we in Trinidad and Tobago, regardless of what difficult period we're going through, regardless of what forces come against us, regardless of what hurdles we have to come, there's no challenge too great for these people in these islands if we all work together. And that togetherness can only be found in the people's national movement. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure for me to work with you in this local government campaign, because it gave me the opportunity to come out and be with you, to get into the communities that I don't normally get into in a normal week or a normal day, and to feel a part of your life. The office of Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is not a foreign country. It's where the decisions are made, guiding the cabinet, and the cabinet has a lot to report. And the same way I told them before, that elections will be called when they're due. They didn't believe me then, they better believe me now. Because the general election will be called when it is due, and it is blows in the east, blows in the west, blows in the south, blows in the north, and blows in Tobago. And the only reason why that could happen is because we have maintained this 63-year-old organization going into our 64th year and way beyond the century. And this PNM is what this country will always look to deal with the difficulties of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So on that basis, I ask you to come out on December 2nd, next Monday. Come out next Monday. Voting is simple and straightforward. Choose those who you would like to manage your affairs. And when you do that, with the wisdom that I know you have, with the love of country that I know you have, with the common sense that I know you will execute on that day, we will all say in Trinidad and Tobago, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
Yeah, Siparia. How you doing? It's good to be home, Siparia. Anybody from Siparia say yeah? Say yeah. Hey, say great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Anybody born in PNM tonight? Anybody born in PNM? Put your 2 hands in the air. Put your 2 hands in the air. Let's go. Yeah. PNM. Say, this one is for the nation, for the children. Yeah. Come on, say. We're getting it done in the fires of hope and prayer. Say, together as one, there is no load we cannot bear.